right, thanks for sitting down with me. And just checking before we start, you are the band
Yeah.
director for both the high
Yeah.
school and middle school, right?
Mhm.
Can you tell me about some of the initial reactions to the changes when you heard about the
Yeah.
plant closing? How did you learn about the plant closing?
Right. It was back in November. We were at the Nebraska Music Educators Convention in Lincoln. And we were sitting around talking about plans for this year and things we were going to do. And I got a text from my wife, and she said that it showed me this letter that was written to the employees of Tyson, talking about the closure of the plant. And I read it and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just shocked. And I said, this isn't a joke, is it? And so I said something to Spencer, and he's like, he was freaking out, and Sarah was too. And then all of a sudden they started hearing things, and it started to get worse and worse. And then, of course, we figured out it was real. And then we got an email from administration letting us know that that's what was going down, what was happening. And of course, we were just, really shocked about, what was going to happen, and with to our kids and things like that. But yeah, we were actually in Lincoln at convention when we were notified of what was going to take place.
Were you the one that had to tell them about it, or did they learn about it on their own?
Well, no, actually, they found out from all of their parents. The Tyson company let everybody know. I think it was 2:30 in the afternoon is when they sent the letters out. So it was right before one of the shifts was going to be done. And I think it was the A shift. B shift was supposed to work later that night, I believe. And they just didn't, they didn't have them go in. They just canceled the B shift for the night. So they basically got the letter as they walked out. So I'm sure the kids found out from their parents when they got home from school that day at 3:30. So we had a little bit of time as a staff to kind of prepare, and then we talked to the kids on Monday. There was a statement that was released by the administration, and of course, we read it in class, and then we talked about it. But we didn't rehearse that day. We just kind of talked to the kids and just try to feel it out a little bit.
What was it like for some of the kids that were affected by the change at the plant?
There was some sadness. There was a few tears, not very many, but a lot of the kids were just kind of in shock. It's one of those things where you announce that this is going to happen and there's this big change, but nothing has happened yet, and you just don't know. And at the time, they thought, well, maybe they'll just close for a little bit and then reopen, and we still don't know. No one's letting us know anything about what's happening, but it was just kind of quiet. I guess it was probably a few more weeks after that when we figured it out, and it was really when I want to say it was in January, is the January 20th, I think was the date. I don't know if that's correct or not, but right around there, that's when we really noticed it, because they actually did close the plant, and parents went home and stuff like that. So it's just been tough. Sometimes you'll look out at kids when you're rehearsing, and some of them seem a little distant, or they're just not focused on what they normally are focused on, because they've got a lot of other things going on in their lives.
You said before that you won't really know what's going to happen until this
Right.
summer.
Mhm.
Why not until this summer?
Yeah, well, I think it's number one, even if the parents know that they're going to move, which I'm not even sure some of them do know, if they decide they are going to leave, they don't want to pull their kids out of school. They want to finish. We've got a lot of seniors and that want to graduate, and juniors, and kids are involved in soccer and track and all sorts of other activities, as well as their education. And people are bought into our community. They want to stay as long as they can, but they're not trying to pull the kids out of school unless both parents have to leave. I think maybe we've had some parents, maybe one has taken a job somewhere else. Maybe they're either commuting. I know we've had some parents that have taken jobs in Grand Island. There's some in North Platte, quite a few in North Platte. We picked up a lot in Kearney. There's some in Holdridge. So the surrounding area has picked up a lot, and I'm assuming that a lot of those kiddos will probably stay here, and parents will just commute. But who knows? With the price of gas, that may change. They may find out that it's easier to go somewhere else. Now, I do know that North Platte is a place that picked up a lot of parents that are working, and I've heard that there's not very many houses, and there's housing is tough to find in North Platte. So people are going to stay in Lexington because they've got those locations. But they've stuck around because they want to keep their kids here and they want to stay. But we just don't know, that could totally change over the summer.
How big is the Lexington music program currently?
Yeah. Yeah, we were just under 250 students in the high school band this year. We were 247 with marching band. Now that comes down a little bit once we lose the color guard members after the fall. But we're still right around 200, 210. And so In the middle school right now, we're around 130, 135 or so in sixth grade, maybe 115, 120 in seventh grade, a little over 100 in eighth grade. But we start around 150 to 160 kids in the fifth grade program. So there's a lot of students involved. We're just right around 700 to 750 kids in the program, 5 through 12.
How much do you think that the program is going to shrink in the future?
Yeah, well, we know it's going to get smaller. We do know that. How much we just don't know. I think right now we've lost. I think right around maybe 7 to 9 students. I don't know the actual number to that that we have, but we've also gained a few too that have moved in just because they were close and there was some more housing that has become available. But the kindergarten thing this year, and again, I said this earlier, but I don't quote me on these numbers, but I'd heard that there was only 170 students that had signed up for kindergarten. First, I heard it was 140, and then I was corrected. They said, no, I think it's 170. But when you're looking at, we've had some classes that were 230, and so that's a pretty big, that's a pretty low level, lower number than what we've seen. But it also it has fluctuated before. We've had 170 in the past, and the next year you're 230. So it just depends on the kids and kind of where that lies. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's probably going to be a little bit smaller. So,
What are you planning to do to handle the future change in size?
we do we're still going to be able to continue to do what I think what our plans are with marching band. We just don't know the numbers. The biggest thing is going to be probably when drill comes around for marching band, whether or not we're going to have. We've got a great drill writer. He's super cool. He's out of Omaha. He writes great drill. He'll work with us. I know that was one of the things. We were actually at convention when this happened, and he came up to me and says, "Man, I'm really sorry. We're going to work with you. We'll do whatever we can." So that's a good thing. As far as instrumentation goes, if we drop to 150 in the high school band, that's still a big band. The only thing would be the instrumentation that we'd have to deal with. Whether that's if you've got 70 clarinets and 5 trumpets, then you're going to be in trouble. But I doubt that happens. But that's not the big issue. The big issue is whether or not our kids are going to be able to continue on with other band programs in other schools that they may go to, or just whether they're going to be okay with having to, change locations and, upend their lives from what they're used to, from what they're having daily. So I'm more concerned about the kids that are leaving than I am the ones that are going to be here. The ones that are going to stay will be just fine. We'll be okay.
All right. Thank you for talking and interviewing with me.
Absolutely.
Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you bet.